here with my buddy Ray Driscoll. He's been working with Protocol Cigars for some time.
Thanks, Jared. It's great to be here. I'm honored to be part of the relaunch of your YouTube channel. Happy to talk about Protocol, smoke some cigars with you, and get into it. We're smoking the new Protocol release from earlier this year, the third edition in our Lawmen series. We have our core line and then our Lawmen series. This is the Protocol Bass Reeves. Comes in both a natural and a Maduro. Hopefully we'll get a close-up of that band for you as you're viewing this. The natural is going to be Ecuadorian Sumatra, very spicy wrapper over Nicaraguan binder and filler. The Maduro is a Nicaraguan puro with a Nicaraguan Habano Maduro wrapper. Two of our releases, our last two Lawmen releases, are made through Espinosa, but at AJ Fernandez. And the one that we're smoking right now, which I think is the first time you've had it, is our Bass Reeves in the natural, which I prefer, and almost always I prefer the Maduro. In our last release, the Elliot Ness, which I know you've had, I absolutely love the Elliot Ness Maduro, which is a Nicaraguan broadleaf wrapper. I only know of two cigars off the top of my head that utilize the Nicaraguan broadleaf wrapper, one being the Mombacho Casafavilli, which was a hit here. And you know, they're a brand that was close to me. It was blended by my friend Claudio Seguroi, who's no longer with the company, but is doing great things on his own as a consultant and with some other brands. That was done as a natural in Nicaraguan broadleaf. The Ness is a Nicaraguan broadleaf Maduro. It's fantastic. It has a ton of flavor, natural sweetness, not quite like a San Andreas would, but it's nowhere near as earthy or gritty as a Pennsylvania broadleaf or a Connecticut broadleaf, which are the two more popular versions of broadleaf that are used in wrappers. But right now, you just lit up the Bass Reeves Natural Ecuadorian Sumatra wrapper made at AJ Fernandez. I think it's wonderful. It's I find it to be very spicy. I don't know what your initial impression is.
Well, that was the first thing that hit me right off the bat, was how spicy it was. And I always have a soft spot for a box press cigar.
Yeah, and our
something hits me right here.
I think the one thing with box press, especially for people, and a few of my friends hate box press cigars, which
Why?
I'll
Like
never.
the draw on a box press, like,
And that's what I was
going
to say. And I think
to a draw on a box press, because
I think maybe some people feel as though it may be underfilled and may have too open a draw for them, like Padrones. I mean, Padrones are, if anyone has anything negative to say about a Padrone, there's something wrong with them. The only critique I have of a Padrone is you can smoke a Toro in about a half an hour. Because
yeah, they do have a quick burn.
The draw is so open. But the draw on this is great. Our entire Lawmen series in the standard sizes are box press Toros, which smoke a little smaller, which is also the best thing about a box press to me, is you could smoke a Churchill that is going to smoke like a Corona because of the size differential by it being box pressed. But this, in this cigar, I personally prefer the natural. I know one of our owners, Juan Cancel, who I know you've met, who's a fantastic person.
Oh yeah,
great
he's
cigar
awesome.
guy. A lot of fun to hang out with. If you've ever been to any of our events, you definitely know Juan. He's made you an old fashioned with his pinky finger, and he probably insulted you 400 times, and then you walked out loving him. He's a wonderful person, great cigar guy. He likes the Maduro. And I like it, but I think the natural really hits with that spice that's unique to Sumatra for me. That I feel like my favorite Sumatra cigars almost always are the things that Pete Johnson does at Tatuaje with different blends that he's used Sumatra, and they're just fantastic. And I think what we did with Espinosa and through the factory at AJ is a winner. So I hope you dig it.
Oh, dude, like, one thing that I really love about this cigar, right off the bat, like, it's Spicy on the tongue, but smooth on the retrohale.
It is, and the retrohale
It's like butter.
is fantastic. In some folks, especially those newer to cigars, that don't know what we mean when we talk about retrohale, we're talking about, cigars you don't take into your lungs like you would certain things you smoke. You'll die if you take a cigar into your lungs. If you retrohale, you're blowing some of that smoke, not necessarily all of it, out through your nose. I retrohale probably more than I should. I retrohale almost every puff that I take. And what I try to do is I'll blow 85% of the smoke out my nose, out of my mouth, and then the last little bit through my nose. And you're able to pick up some of those flavor notes that you might not, where you're just puffing it using your mouth.
Right.
But I think this thing hits.
It does.
But I'm happy you relaunched your channel. You're off to a really great start. Unfortunately, you were derailed by COVID the way so many businesses and brands and media were when we all went underground and hid in our bunkers because of what was going on in the world. And I'm really happy you reached out, asked me to come here and sit with you and talk about our cigars and just about cigars in general. And obviously, may go without saying, it may not. We're at Capelli Brothers on 13th Street between Walnut and Locust in Philadelphia, Center City, Philadelphia. It's a great shop. It's a shop that I've had the privilege of being in from a couple weeks after they opened, which is how many years ago now, Jared? Is it 5 years?
We just celebrated our 8-year anniversary, which was a pretty cool turnout. I know a lot of people came, a lot of people visited. It was great business, and it was a good time.
Capelli Brothers are Michael and Andrew Capelli, two entrepreneurs here who own a pizza shop that's nearby that makes great food, and the cigar shop, which I think started more as a passion project, but has really turned into a successful business, successful cigar business, which isn't easy to accomplish in an area like this, especially when they really curate their humidor to not just include what they're supposed to have. When I say that, I mean some of the larger brands that most people are familiar with, but really have a humidor that focuses on a lot of the boutique brands like Protocol, like some of the other brands that are here. And I could go on and on about what's down there, but you have the Stolen Throne down there, and I was with Lee Marsh a couple weeks ago, and he's obviously doing wonderful things with that brand, which was born from the Crook of the Crown a few years ago, and now he has 3 different lines
Probably
there.
one of my most favorite cigars.
The original release of the Crook of the Crown, and if you remember when that came out, the real hook with that was he was using Mexican San Andres wrapper that was aged significantly.
Right.
He sort of happened upon it.
That Indonesian filler with the Nicaraguan helped out a lot too.
And I think Indonesian filler Indonesian is utilized wonderfully in a filler, and a lot of the legal releases by Drew has Indonesian filler. A good friend of mine, Greg Williams, owns Vintage Cigar Lounge in Rhode Island, had a cigar made by Drew for him. He's a legal lounge, and it was Connecticut broadleaf over Indonesian. And I think Indonesian really manages to balance some of the more powerful or fuller-bodied cigars and bring them to a strength that's palatable to cigar smoker that may not want something that's full body all the time. If you're in Rhode Island, check out Vintage Cigar Lounge, 2 locations in Westerly, Rhode Island, and Charlestown, Rhode Island. Stop in, see Greg. He's the beard, big beard.
I'll try to
Great
throw
lounge.
a link in the description for that.
Appreciate that. But that's what's wonderful about this industry, is the people. And it's the kind of thing that when you go into larger shops, more corporate type shops, and there's certainly one of those nearby, they're less personable. But when you get into places like this, other places where we happen to have our accounts. And I know we're here at Capelli Brothers, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, Harry's nearby. It's a terrific shop. Kay's out in Glenside, PA is a great shop.
Oh, I love Keys.
Smoking Manioc, it's changed a little bit, but it's still a great place.
Little shout out to Kay and her little stogie sticks.
Still a great place to have a cigar.
I think like that those little stogie sticks for the chicks, dude, like really helped her evolve.
That's how she launched. I mean,
yeah, that was
I
awesome.
Personally don't see the utility in it, but a lot of people do. And God bless her. I mean,
she also worked in law, didn't she?
Kay's a lieutenant in the police department.
So, yeah, Kay's really awesome. Me and a buddy of mine, Dr. Smellgood.
Yeah.
I'm going to give him a little shout out, maybe a little description for him.
Great cigar guy. I've seen him here frequently.
Yeah, he turned me on to that place as well as a couple other places. He's taken me to Wooden Indian, which was really awesome.
Solid shop. I mean, Big Drew shop, solid shop.
Yeah, like they have a really awesome humidor in there. Their lounge is just like sick. I really enjoyed going there.
The lounge is still relatively new.
Yeah.
It's very different than it used to be.
Right. But Kay's, Dr. Smellgood took me there for my birthday. And that was the first time that I smoked the Drew Estate Feral Pig. Oh, you got a little ash on you.
Look, I'm such an amateur.
Oh, yeah.
You'll have to edit that out, Jared.
Nah, I'm not editing that out. That just comes with it, bro. People, it's so funny, like when I'm working downstairs and people are sitting there smoking their cigar, then the ash drops on the bar. Then they start freaking out. They're like, "Oh, could you?" They try to wipe it up themselves. Then I just see the ash spread everywhere, and I'm like, "Dude, like chill out. Like it's part of the business.
It's the experience, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely part of the experience.
It's like sweeping up hair in a barbershop,
Well, if you haven't dropped the cigar ash on your lap, you haven't smoked the cigar.
Correct. So how long have you been here now? I mean, I've been seeing you since you started, but I already got the number of years you were open wrong. How long have you been here?
I think I've been here about, this is a rough estimate, probably about 6.5, 7 years out of the 8. So I kind of grew with the company.
And when you started here, if I remember correctly, you really hadn't gotten into cigars much yet. It was still relatively new to you, right?
Oh, yeah, it was absolutely new. So I met Mike through a mutual friend, and I absolutely fell in love with the place because it was a cool, sociable place that I could hang out, I could enjoy a cigar, and it actually helped me become a social person. And that's the beautiful thing about cigars is that there's always conversation revolving around it.
And it's probably the only hobby I've ever had or that I can think of. And, people may criticize my calling it a hobby because I know to most people it becomes a lifestyle, and that's fair too. But it's really the only pastime you can have where you can sit in a room with people you've never met from every different walk of life and find common ground, which is nice. And, and that's, I mentioned smoking Manioc earlier, and I spent a lot of time there for many years, and it's still a place that I value, although I don't get to be there as often. But I could go in there any night of the week by myself and fall right into a group of guys and have a wonderful conversation, and it's still like that. And this place is like that, and most of the places we mentioned are like that.
A lot of the brick and mortar cigar shops, usually it's like, you go into some of these high-end places and they're just like really pretentious people who really don't know too much about the product. They're just smoking it to look fancy.
No,
they don't
you're
have that like inner.
Well, I always say
love.
Some people pick out the cigar like it's a prop, right? The way you'd pick out a accent piece for your clothing or jewelry, something to hold and look cool, and that's fine too. You know, that's how a lot of people have a gateway into the way you smoke cigars now, or I smoke cigars now. But that's certainly like a portion of it. And then you become geeks like us that nerd out over this stuff and get into the components and the size and the roll and the factory and the brand and the owners and everything like that. And that's what's great about the boutique lines is you know, if we talked about General Altadis, you know, not knocking them at all. They make some fine products, but we don't know anything about, for the most part, except unless it's AJ, who's blending it, the factory that it's made in, where these boutique brands, and not just Protocol, but you know, since we're smoking it, and that's who I have the pleasure of representing. You know, you're a retail guy in Philadelphia. You're one of our accounts. You know the owners. They've been here, and you've talked to them, and when they walk in, they know who you are. And that's not just us. That's most of these boutique brands. I like to think we're a little more boots on the ground than some of these other brands. We're also a little more local, with Juan now being a New York guy, but living in the Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay. I had no idea. I totally thought that he was still living in New York.
No, he and Kevin, who's our other owner, both live in the Lehigh Valley. So they are truly local, an hour or so from Philadelphia.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have him come on the show next time as well.
Love to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be awesome. So we could definitely look forward to that in the future.
He'll be far more interesting than I am. I promise you that.
Oh well, you're a pretty interesting dude.
Well,
so
you'd have to edit him a lot more, but
yeah,
you know, he's a lot of fun.
I could just see me going completely raw on Juan. I think that
Yeah.
I think people would get a kick out of him. He's definitely a wild character.
No,
So
he is.
like definitely from the moment that I met him.
No,
you know,
he
I see
is.
him post a lot.
He's unchained, but he has a tremendous passion for the industry, the craft, and for our brand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you think of this so far? What are you getting from it?
So
It's hard for me to get past the spice, in a good way.
yeah. I mean, so far the flavors are pretty consistent through it. It's definitely a little bready.
Something you'd smoke again?
Yeah, absolutely. This is definitely something I would smoke again. It's pairing really nicely with my coffee too.
Yeah, it's that. I'd say it's a medium plus, but with that spice is what makes it the plus.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's terrific. I smoked the Maduro earlier tonight, just to kind of get calibrated, but I think I prefer the natural.
Right. What was the first cigar you smoked?
It's a really good question, because I came to cigars, I'd say later in life than you did. I've probably been smoking cigars now for close to 15 years. So when you say the first cigar you smoked, I'm not counting cigars I smoked at bachelor parties, weddings, on vacation. I'm not counting those because, you know, and whenever I have a friend that's not smoked a cigar but who's interested, I always tell them, you don't have to smoke the whole thing. There's no time limit. You don't have to work through it. When you've had enough, put it down, but take your time. So I skip all of those with respect to your question. One of my closest friends in the world, my friend Bob, who's been here before with you and you've met him, he was interested in cigars and turned me onto them to the point where I am now. He doesn't smoke anywhere near as often as I do or anywhere near as many brands as I do, but he was a big fan of the Monte Cristo No. 2, the Cuban version, but also the Dominican version. And one night when we were working together, one day we were working together, and he said, "Why don't you come by later? We'll have a cigar." And I went by, and we had a Monte Cristo too, and I really got into it. And I called him the next morning, and I said, "When can we have another cigar?" And I think by 2 weeks later, I had my first humidor. About 3 months later, I had outgrown it, like we all do when we transition from cigar purchasers to cigar collectors. And I think now I probably have 7 or 8 humidors in 2 different states. But yeah, the cigar that turned me on to everything was a Cuban Monte Cristo too. Yeah, and the rest is history, my man.
Yeah, that's awesome.
How about you?
So pretty funny. When I first started coming to the shop, what got me hooked were the mint Javas.
So, fun fact, or not so fun fact, I've never smoked a flavored cigar. Ever.
Really?
Yeah, ever.
Really?
Nothing wrong with it. Whatever blows your hair back, go for it.
Yeah.
And I know that's a lot of people's introduction. I just was fortunate enough that someone put a really traditional cigar in my hand.
I mean, I think
liked
the
it.
Deadwood line's pretty fun.
So,
But
you know,
I really don't dabble with them too much. Because there's way too much other shit that I love, like, more than that, of
yeah,
course.
and I don't begrudge anyone who that's their thing.
Neither do I. Like, hey, you're smoking, you know?
Unfortunately,
you smoke what you like.
I think that the current political climate and the activity within the FDA, that we're going to start seeing flavored cigars banned in more states. And before you know it, they're going to disappear. And that'll be a thing of the past.
Right, which in a way is kind of hard because I used infused tobacco as an introductory sell to novice cigar smokers. You know, kind of like a set of training wheels.
Yeah, no, I get it. Now, I try not to, but I understand when people, that's what they want. That's what they want to try. I want something that tastes like this. The problem is I think a lot of people get stuck with it. And
Right.
They only want to smoke cigars flavored certain ways. And you mentioned Deadwood, which is the series by Drew Estate that is different from the Acid line, which are very flavored, very aromatic, almost artificial in a lot of ways to me.
Right.
Where Deadwood is less so, but still flavored.
It's a little bit more cigar forward.
Yeah, I think that's true. And if someone insists on it, I'll suggest anyway that they try something from that line, that Leather Rose, Fat Bottom Betty, things like that. But I've still never had one. I have had the Creme Brulee by Dunbarton by Steve Saka, which he insists is not flavored.
But you can taste a
I
little
have
bit of
no
the sweet
reason to
tip in
doubt
there.
him, but no comment.
No comment on that.
Yeah, it's still Sobre Mesa is still a great cigar, but
So, I came in here smoking the Javas, but what really turned me on was the Tatuaje La Missions.
so which you know has been discontinued.
Really?
They have been. I grabbed 2 boxes recently and squirreled them away because they are fantastic. That's L'Atelier. It's the other end of Tatuaje. It's his brother's brand, KC's brand. They're discontinued, but like Pete does with a lot of things, we're going to see them again. They'll be back.
Right.
But they are taking a little bit of a break.
He's totally doing it on purpose.
No, he's a mastermind, you know?
Yeah, he is. So great at his marketing. Genius. Almost evil, though.
No,
Is that
he
good?
does.
It's the evil genius.
I'm a proud member of Saints and Sinners, and I collect the things that he makes, and I can't say that he's ever made anything I didn't love. I enjoy every cigar he makes. It's a terrific brand with it's a true craft brand. He's a true connoisseur. And one of his mentors in the industry, as you know, is one of our mentors. speaking about George Brightman, who's a name that a lot of people today, newer folks, don't know. But if we went back in the time machine, we don't have to go that far. He was the man in the industry. He ran Davidoff in the United States, ran a number of well-known stores, was one of the founders and first business manager of Cigar Aficionado magazine, and one of the people I really have been blessed with having the opportunity to smoke and deconstruct and argue with about cigars. I'm lucky that occasionally he'll send me cigars that people he knows in the industry are considering releasing, and I'll do reviews for him that he'll pass along with his reviews, and sometimes they get made and sometimes they don't.
Right.
But I know that you've had the opportunity to do the same with him, and I think you share a similar opinion. He's an icon in the industry, and I always tell him he's my Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
I call him like the smart Forrest Gump of cigars.
Yeah.
He has a story for everyone in every corner of the industry.
He does. No, it gives me like the same feel, and another person that I would really love to meet, Nick Melillo.
So I've met Nick once. I didn't spend a lot of time with him, but he was completely genuine. Clearly a cigar nerd and a cool guy. And what he accomplished at his age is amazing. I mean,
yeah, it's like he's been in the industry for 50 years.
You know, you can argue with people about the Drew Estate legal line and broadleaf, but between Nick and Saka, and I like both of them, and I appreciate what both of them have done. But Nick is a master, and what he did with Foundation, the roadmap that he followed, it's obviously very similar to the roadmap Drew started with. But he's made some fantastic cigars. I had the pleasure of going up to the Owl Shop in New Haven, Connecticut, which I don't know if you've ever been there. It's a very old, traditional cigar bar. They have a great cafe in there with wonderful coffee, terrific selection of whiskeys and spirits, and a very solid selection of cigars. But Nick, that was Nick's shop. Nick's from, I believe he's from Hamden, Connecticut, and if I'm wrong, someone will correct me. But I believe he's from that area. He's from the New Haven area for sure. But that place was important to Nick. I think he may have worked there when he got his start. And he did a shop exclusive for the Owl Shop. And I believe I still have some left. If you haven't had one, I'll bring one in for you.
I would love to try it.
Yeah, they're great cigars. My brother's up in Connecticut, so when I run out, I send him to the Owl Shop to make a run for me. But it's a great place, except for it's the place that I had my Richard Tatuaje cigar holder stolen, but it was my fault. But it's the only negative I have on the Owl Shop. Very cool place, right in the shadows of Yale, and pretty cool city, pretty cool area.
That's really cool. Well,
so you're working your way through it. You already got the band off it.
Yep.
Transitioning at all, or still kind of living where it lived?
It's kind of living where it lived, but it's picking up in the best way possible. Like, I could taste the flavors getting a little bit more rich as it goes on.
So, excuse me for this. My daughter is texting me, so I have to respond. She's 12, and she knew I was going to be here with you and asked that I mention her during your show. So she hates cigars, but her name's Sydney. She's 12, and little shout out to her for that. She's a big YouTuber, so this is like, you know, it gives her like one reason to think I might have like the slightest bit of cool in me. So it's a cool
that's
thing.
awesome.
Yeah.
I don't think I've watched like any, like I'm usually just like, when it comes to YouTube, I I flow through like a bunch of stuff. Like I'll watch like a lot of cigar stuff. For some reason I've been watching like ghost hunters and stuff like that. I've been watching.
I'll watch music videos from the 90s and 80s. That's kind of it, you know.
I've been watching like a bunch of bodybuilders and shit, like Jay Cutler and Juji Mufu, and
I have no idea what you're talking
yeah,
about.
you have no idea who I'm talking about, and that's okay. But
I'm old, so, you know.
yeah, I've been getting really hooked on like the bodybuilding stuff. Like it's also another like passion that I'm picking up
That's great, man.
aside from cigars. So I'm gonna try to keep myself healthy.
That's a healthier addiction.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. What?
So one of the cool things about the cigar we're smoking, our Lawmen series, in case you didn't know, I know you know, Juan, one of our owners, is a retired police officer from New York City, and then the New York Port Authority Police Department. So many of our cigars in the line have names that are based on law enforcement terms or people. Our Lawmen series we started 3 years ago with the Robert Peel. We did a natural in Maduro, Maduro being Pennsylvania broadleaf, which is a very meaty cigar that should probably come with a porterhouse in the box when you buy it. Robert Peel, of course, being person they credit with being the founder of policing. It's why in England they call them bobbies after Robert Peel. Last year we did the Elliot Ness. Everyone knows who Elliot Ness is. Took out Al Capone. My favorite cigar in our portfolio. And this year we came out with the Bass Reeves. And I didn't know who Bass Reeves was. And that is a fault on my part, but also really on society, because Bass Reeves was the and I want to make sure I get it right, and if I don't, I apologize, but my understanding is he was the first African-American U.S. Marshal west of the Mississippi. But cooler than that, Bass Reeves was the inspiration for the Lone Ranger, which I'm not sure if you knew that. I didn't. Apparently there's a movie about it, which is pretty awesome, but the band, which I hope you'll show when you put this together, features a photograph of Bass Reeves, and you know, it's a great photo. It's a period photo, and it's probably the only cigar I can think of that features an African American on the band of a cigar. And you know, the cigar industry needs to recognize that a very large segment of people who smoke cigars, people that frequent these lounges and shops and bars, are African Americans. It's a huge portion of the cigar industry, and I'm proud that our brand elected to feature an African American on our newest cigar, and it's really boosted by the fact that it's just a fantastic smoke. So yeah. I think that's pretty cool, and I hope that consumers will recognize that and appreciate the person who's featured on the band. And when you pick it up in the humidor, and you sit down in your seat at your lounge or in your man cave or woman cave or whatever it is you have, Google him and read a little bit about him, because he was a true badass, man.
Yeah.
He's a cool guy, and it's a great photo.
Cool. Well, I think that just about wraps it up.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah,
I really appreciate you you doing this.
Good luck with everything you do. I hope that those of you watching this that haven't smoked any Protocol will try to do so. If your shop doesn't have it, ask about them. Look me up on Instagram. It's at Ray Driscoll, RayDriscoll. Follow me. I'll follow you back, unless you're trying to sell me Bitcoin or cryptocurrency or anything like that, or ask me to join the Illuminati. I'll follow you back, and we'll share content and smoke cigars together. So thanks for having me here. It's been great.
Yeah, man.
Thanks, Jared.
It's
What's up, people? I want to thank you for tuning in to Jared Knows Cigars. If you liked the video you saw today, make sure you like, comment, and share. Don't forget to subscribe. And hit that bell at the bottom. That way you get a notification anytime new content comes onto my channel. Thank you.